Okay, we are live. This mimer that we're going to study this evening, Vani L'Deidi, is quite a famous mimer, one of Al Rebbe's most famous maimarim, and we can call revolutionary maimarim, of the period of the month of Elul and Tishrei. Many of the concepts and ideas I'm sure you're all familiar with, but it's always good to learn it in the original, in the Al Rebbe's Lashon, the original mimer, where all these ideas that we have been brought up with come from. Just begin with a little introduction of understanding historical perspective of the revolution that this mimer created. Anyone who's studied Jewish history in terms of the holiday seasons, how it was like in the Jewish world in 1700s and prior, while we don't have, at least I've never seen, access to any historical writings on descriptions of how it was in these periods of times in the Sephardi lands or in the Ashkenazi lands prior to the 1200s, but certainly from the 1200s and on, we have descriptions. And in general, if throughout the year there was an emphasis of a person to be very strong on himself, to be very self-judging and always thinking about if he's doing something right, or the more so, this was magnified in the month of Elul. We'll just give an example of a description that Bariatz writes in Sefer HaZechrenos of how Yom Kippur Katan used to be back in the Welt. This is a description from 1500s. It was a custom that every Erev Yom Kippur, every Erev Rish Chodesh, especially even today, this is kept to some degree on Erev Rish Chodesh Elul, this past Thursday. It was done in many communities. They would treat it like Yom Kippur, and they would fast and say slichas, but that was just the external actions. But what would happen on this day is that the Rosh Hashiva would come in, and the Rav of the town would come in, and they would give a very, very tough Musar Shnuz to the yeshiva students as well as to the community. And it was like old style Magidim. They would cry and bemoan and discuss, the different sins of the community have to be fixed. And this was done on a monthly basis, but although more so was done on Erev, by before Rosh Hashanah, by Elul, in Yom Kippur Katan of Elul. And throughout the month of Elul, it was a very melancholy month. People were scared. People were more serious. They wouldn't smile. It's almost opposes the whole atmosphere of tshuva. What are you smiling about? You have to be serious and straighten up. And the Alter Rebbe came in and really fused the Baal Shem Tov came in, really fused a totally different perspective, very revolutionary to those times. Today, already it's sunk in for quite some generations, so we're not used to anymore the contrast. But back then, there was a tremendous contrast that was very vivid. Just give a description that Saul Jacobson writes in his memoirs. Saul Jacobson was not connected to the Jacobson family that's famous today. No relation. He was a famous Chabad Chassid who came from Russia in 1924 to the United States, and he headed back then the Agudas Chassidic Chabad of the United States. But beforehand, he was in the yeshiva in Lubavitch, and then afterwards in Rostov, and then afterwards he was in a city called Kremenchuk. Kremenchuk was a city famous for its Rav, the Radatz Chen, David Tzvi Chen, from the Chen family. So he tells over the following story, which gives some interesting perspective and contrast of the difference between the Chassidim and the non-Chassidim who lived there. So when he came to Kremenchuk, there was no yeshiva in the city. And he was asked by the Rav, So, and also by the Rebbe Rashab to open Avatim Ketmimim, which he did, and he opened Avatim Ketmimim, and many students started coming, not necessarily Lubavitch students, but before people who their parents wanted them to have some association with Yiddishkeit. Don't forget, this is already in Stalin Russia. This is already after the Bolshevik Revolution, so it's not so simple. It's not so easy to go ahead and be involved. At that time, there was a number of students of the yeshiva of Navardik who had to run away because of different issues. And they moved to Kremenchuk. So they were found in Kremenchuk. And they also opened up a yeshiva. Now, these type of individuals, they were into a type of Musar called Navardik Musar, where they were very, very much like an extreme way into melancholiness and bittul. Like it was forbidden to smile or to laugh ever throughout the year. In Elul, there's nothing to talk about. It's like if you tried cracking a joke, they wouldn't laugh. Very, very serious. And they would do things to be mavatal themselves, to nullify themselves. Such as, for example, he writes there that they would go into a store. In this case, it was in Kremenchuk, a store that sold, that sold clothing, and ask in the middle of a boiling hot summer, can I please have, your best winter jacket? They would just do things to make fools out of themselves in order to belittle themselves, make themselves low.
Did they have a Rebbe or Rav or something?
Sure, they did. In fact, the Rosh Hashiva also was, I think, exiled from Navardik. And he eventually came to Kremenchuk, which is another story. But on that point itself, the Chassidim there saw a very class difference between, the Chassidic perspective, and by the Eilim issues.
But then the Chassidim were not like it is today. The Eilim was today. It was also a much newer.
It was
sober.
It's called Gilu B'Ra'ada. It's called rejoicing with trepidation. Gilu B'Ra'ada, like Rosh Hashanah. We'll get to that. Today, I don't know what we are. Today, the Rebbe says that today we're a chont. We're a big chont. People wrote to the Rebbe the things were done back then. This was the Seder. This is the way it goes. The Rebbe says today all the channels are mixed up. Everything today is a big chont. So yeah, just like the Gashmis, all the communities have become mixed. So to the Ruchnis, all the Neshamas are mixed up. Everyone's mixed up. Not even going back. So what happened was that Saul Jacobson was trying to bring members into the yeshiva, and for a few different reasons, but part of the reasons because they had a much more open and enjoyable approach in the yeshiva. So many students who were assigned in the Navardik yeshiva started coming to his yeshiva. And they came and they learned, and to the point that the Navardik yeshiva was left with only a few bachrim. So they got very upset. And two of their, Manalim of the yeshiva came to the Time Ketmimim. They went to Yisrael Jacobs and they told him, we're not allowing, it was, Chacha Fagan was giving a share. He says, we're not going to let him give the share until you give us back our bachrim. So Jacob said, look, we took your brachna, we should take them back. Speak to them. They came on their own. We don't close our doors to people. Just because they were enrolled in the yeshiva, we're not going to close our door. They want to come to our yeshiva. But they wouldn't have it. They said they're not budging. So he had to get a little physical, and he says that he was a big person, he physically took them and threw them out. And they wouldn't fight back. He knew them because it's like totally against their philosophy to do anything. And anyway, he says that afterwards, the next day, their Rosh Hashiva, who had come in from exile from Navardik, was sitting with the Radat Chaim, the Rav of the city. And when he was told the whole story, he really gave him over the head for what he did for being physical. Okay, we're going to begin inside of the Maimer. We'll see how much we can accomplish in it. It's not so long. As you see, it's 2 pages. It's split into 5 chapters. Let's see how much we can get done. Ani l'doidi li. Ani l'doidi li is a pasuk. Anyone know where? Which sefer is it from? Shir Hashirim. Shir Hashem, as we know, is a love song between between the Jewish people and God that King Solomon composed. And one of the verses in Perek Vav, Pasuk Gimel, it states, Ani l'deidi v'deidi li. The continuation of the pasuk there is, Deidi li v'ani loi. And it's explained that this pasuk is referring to two different types of relationship with Hashem. In one order, Ani l'deidi li, and the second order is Deidi li v'ani loi. Abu Daram says that the order of Ani l'deidi v'deidi li, that is the Rashi Tevis of Elul, which means that is the message that Chassidishe Elul contains and gives to every single Jew living within it. Literally, let's describe what this means. What does the pasuk mean? I am to my beloved is to me. The opposite is, my beloved is to me, I am to my beloved. It says that Ani Lo Deidi Li is what takes place in Elul, while Deidi Li V'Ani Lo takes place in the month of Nisan. That's when the second half of the pasuk in Shir Hashem takes place. Ani Lo Deidi V'Deidi Li is the form of Avodah that's specific to Elul, in contrast to Nisan, and we're going to elaborate on that further on the exact difference that we're going to see between them. Ve'inyan, ki be'elul matchil bechinas ani l'deidi, d'hainu bechinas rusa d'lasato. The concept of this is, meaning, what does it mean? What is the meaning of the pasuk that Abu Daram says is the Reisha Tevis of Elul? So this means, the message of this is, as in Elul begins the time that I have to be to my beloved. Meaning, Isarusa de Lasato. A Jew is required to do the first moves to serve God. A relationship always requires someone to initiate, someone to start. With everything, there's always a beginning. Someone has to begin. The question is who? Many relationships never get started or progress because no one else wants to initiate. And if no one initiates, then the ball never gets moving. So God set up a seder. There's times of year that I initiate, and there's times of year that you initiate. The time of year that I initiate is Nisan. Deidi li v'ani lo. My beloved is to me, God is close to me, and in return, I then return with feelings to him after he has already initiated the feelings in the relationship. Masha'enkin and Elul, God demands the opposite. Now it's our turn, Ani l'deidi, that first we have to have a susa de lasato, and then he will reciprocate with deidi li. How is it that deidi v'ani lo in Nisan? In Nisan, we were in the 49, originally in Mitzrayim, we were in the 49 depths of Tumah, completely uninterested and unassociated with anything godly, Jewish, with anything spiritual. We were involved in idolatry to our necks, and we had no relationship with God. God, despite all that, ignored all that, initiated a relationship. He revealed himself by, he took us out of Mitzrayim, by Kriyas Yamsuf, etc., Matan Torah. All of that brought a reciprocate love from the Jewish people to the point that by Matan Torah, Parcha Nishmas. And that's a klal. The klal always is, as the Alter says in Perek Memvav and Tanya, Kemayim hapanim lapanim keinev odom la'odom. Just as water reflects man's face, so too one man's heart is reflected in another man's heart. And so too that when God shows us love, then that reciprocates a revelation of love in our heart. And the opposite as well. When we show God love, that reveals a reciprocation of love from him to us. So an Elul begins as Rusa Dulasat. Ad Rosh Hashanah v'Yom Kippurim she'mechinas hamshachas ulukus yisborach lamata b'chinas hasgalos. This period of our Aveda, of our initiation, carries on until Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, that's when the next part of the pasuk, the Deidi Li, begins. That's when God begins to reciprocate and give back. How? As Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, that's when we have a revelation, a drawing down of God's divine light in a way that it's revealed. As it states in the verse, it says again in the verse in Shir Hashirim, that his left hand is under my head and his right hand embraces me. What does this mean? That from Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippur, that's when it's the period of smell of the left, which is Gvura, which is representing Yira, fear, God's awe is revealed. As that is a time of revealing God's malchus. So a few points here. Point number one, the entire month of Elul is a time of Ani L'Deidi. God doesn't give the reciprocation till the next month in Tishrei. For the entire month of Elul, we shouldn't expect anything back. It's us giving to God, investing on our own initiative into the relationship. Point number two, the reciprocative love, the reciprocative act that we receive from God is a revelation of smil, a revelation of God's awe in his revealing of his malchus that occurs with Shani Yom Kippur. And the question is asked as follows. If we invest in a relationship, wouldn't getting back fearfulness from the individual be the last thing on our list? How is that exactly measure for measure? It's like the saying goes, no good deed shall ever go unpunished. So the explanation is as follows. First of all, there's another part to the pasuk. V'yemine techapkeni, smolei tachas l'reishi. The left pushing away is only where from Hashanah to Yom Kippur. But afterwards, during Sukkot, yemine techapkeni. That's when God reciprocates with an abundance of love to the Jewish people. But nonetheless, the question is asked, why then do we have the revelation at all of smil, of yira? Why not just go straight to Abba, straight to love? So this is a question only to people who don't understand proper ingredients in a relationship, which I don't accuse anyone here of, but in our very liberal and advanced world, people begin to forget how relationships work. The Rambam writes in Mishnah Torah, 2 halachas that is worth more than all the marriage books written by the secular world combined. 1 halacha for the man, 2nd halacha for the woman. 2 short halachas in the end of Perek, in the end of Hilchas Ishus, he writes, and this is the secret of how the Jewish people live in harmonious relationships, marriages. And he writes there as follows, that the wife is to have, first of all, he writes that the wife is to look at her husband like an aristocrat, like a prince, and have some level of awe of him. He writes in the first halacha what the husband does for the wife. Then in the second halacha, he writes what the wife does for the husband. And the reason is as follows. Well, why does he write that there's a necessity, this ingredient of awe? Skip the awe. Just have love, and everyone's especially, everyone's trying to progress equality. So why should there be awe? Why should there be hierarchy or aristocracy in a marriage? Everyone's equal. So the answer is that for the proper ingredients to work in a marriage of mashpia and mekabel, you need to have a mekabel that wants to be mekabel. And you need to have a mashpia that wants to be mashpia. Men and women are not the same. One is a mashpia, one is a mekabel. And in order for a mekabel to want to receive it from the mashpia, they have to know that the mashpia has what to give that I can't get on my own. They have to know that the mashpia is someone who I look up to, someone who I am a little bit intimidated from, someone who I have a little bit of awe towards. As the mixture of that emotion of awe, when it then comes time for closeness, it makes that closeness that much greater. It makes that closeness all the more capable of being expressed. There's another mashal for that, and that is Bechlal, as it says, Lefi Ta'ara Agra, according to the pain is the reward. That a person is not able to properly take advantage or understand or grasp a reward if he's never experienced the lack thereof. Now, awe is not the opposite of love, but it definitely is the opposite in terms of one is representing closeness, while the other is representing distance. And so awe, which creates distance, when a person then has ability of closeness, that closeness is a lot more passion. And this is really the idea over here of first the Eibishter gives us back in Elul a period of Smoile Tachas L'Reishi, the left, and only then does he give us Yemina Techapkeni. Smoile Tachas L'Reishi in Shana Yom Kippur is a revelation of godliness that causes a conscious arousal in a Jew of more seriousness, of more fear of God, of awe. And we all are scared a little bit of the high holidays. One of the biggest proofs is the statistics. All the shuls are open. The highest time of shul attendance in the world is Shana Yom Kippur. That's when they say statistically that 80 to 90% of Jews worldwide attend synagogues. No Jews. They say of a joke that there were 3 Reform rabbis that were discussing the different new revolutions that they're creating in the Reform synagogue. One rabbi said, I decided that this year, instead of blowing from a shofar, we're going to blow from trumpets. The other rabbi said, I decided this year we're going to have a huge kiddush lunch right after Musaf of Yom Kippur. The third rabbi says, I outed all of you. I put up a huge sign in front of the shul that says closed for the holidays. Meaning he was fired. But everybody comes to shul. This is not something stam. This is an arousal from above. The Eibishter's Malchus is revealed. There's a natural awe that the neshama feels, and people stream to the synagogue.
Even in America?
Even in America.
What?
You asked even in America? Yeah, that's where the statistics are from. I said worldwide because the rest of the world is nullified to American jury in terms of numbers, but yes, it is American jury that the statistics are done.
But American Jews don't have the small because they didn't have any idea about Elul.
No, it's something subconscious. It's not. We're going to learn later. It's something subconscious.
They absorb.
Yeah, it's. If you eat food, it gives you energy and gives you vitamins, even if you didn't read what it says in there. It's automatic. You don't have to learn this mimer in order to receive. At the Elul part, you have to do you have to initiate. So you don't know to initiate them, right? But in Tishrei already, it's God reciprocates, and of course, afterwards comes along Sukkot. That's the time you mean it to chapkein. We see this bechlal, the idea of smil and yamin, that you need to have both ingredients in order for things to work. Also, regarding the relationship with children, relationship with the wife we already mentioned, relationship with children, and relationship with the Yetzer Hara. The Gemara in Masechah Saita says, "The oilen tei adam small deiche v'yamin lekareves." The shleisha dvarim. There are 3 things. It says over there, "Bebanim, beyetzer, beyetzer." The children, that there has to be some disciplinary form of fear and awe that the child has to the parent. At the same time, there has to be the care of love. Likewise with the Yetzer Hara, if a person goes all out smell, which is that he completely negates his Yetzer Hara, gives in to nothing, then it's going to boomerang on him, because a person isn't able to live without some kind of physical excitement, without some kind of physical or natural stimulation. On the other hand, if you do only yamin, only give in and indulge, then of course that takes away that spiritual sensitivity. So the Gemara says you have to play it smart. You have to have small deichim in the karas. You have to have a little bit of both. We're continuing back inside. Due to the fact that during the high holiday season, the 10 days of repentance, God's Malchus is revealed, therefore we call him HaMelech. HaMelech HaMishpat, HaMelech HaKadosh. Ki Malchus Kol Olam. As always, God is the King of all worlds, but this is especially made revealed and consciously felt within the worlds during the 10 days of repentance. Meaning that even in the higher upper worlds, the fear of God and awe of God falls upon them. In other words, that there's different periods in heaven and down here of feelings of the relationship. Not throughout the year that the souls and angels are experiencing awe of God. They're busy every single day in davening, experiencing love. It's all about the love. Srafim, Kaddish, Kaddish, Kaddish. They burn in passion, so to the neshamas. However, during the period of these 10 days, since God's Malchus is consciously revealed, it causes a natural love, a natural fear and awe to be revealed in the hearts and emotions of all these creations, from the highest till us down here. What is this awe? What type of awe is this? So there's two types of fear. One is a fear of something's going to happen to me, meaning I fear someone who has a weapon because they can injure me. I don't fear them. I fear the capability they have with the object. If they lost the object, I wouldn't fear them at all. That's a very external fear. It's not a real fear. Awe is from an actual person. Awe of a person is not because of what they can't possibly do to me. Even if I would be asked, what do you think this person can do to you that you have such trepidation, that you're so intimidated by them? I said, absolutely nothing. It's just automatic. How do you explain it psychologically? Why am I scared? Why do I feel awe? What if this person can't do anything to me? There's no threat to myself in any which way. So why do I feel awe of them? The answer is because Hashem set naturally in the world a sphere called Malchus. And Malchus is a sphere that is kingship, sovereignty, kingship. And in the midah of Malchus, there's automatically a hierarchy above everyone else that causes everyone else to feel trepidation to them. It's something natural. It has nothing to do, just like some people have natural love for certain things and natural fears for certain things, there is a natural awe for a real king. And it's not because of his power, and it's not because of what he can do, it's because of the essence of his soul, of his existence. That existence is so high and powerful, much higher than the regular person, and therefore the person feels awe towards them. This is hard to find today because today we don't really have true aristocracy. We don't really have even our leaders and politicians. We all know this. So, no one's really feeling awe. But back in the day when we had kings and queens, there was a real awe to would faint. Just like we know what happened often with the Rebbe. Starting with the Alter Rebbe and onwards, the people would go in, and because of the awe and trepidation of the awesomeness of the tzaddik, they would faint. What were they scared of? If the Rebbe was going to hit them? The Rebbe was a very nice man. The Rebbe was not going to do anything wrong to them. It's an awe of the soul. This idea of Malchus is what is revealed during Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It's an automatic, and therefore it brings an automatic feeling of awesomeness, of trepidation of God during this time. The Alter Rebbe, when he was in prison, I believe in the second time, in the 1800s, in the year 1800, so the king, the Tsar, after he heard much of the Alter Rebbe's greatness, his geniusness, he decided to pay him a visit, pay a visitation. But he didn't want him to know that he's the king. He didn't want him to act any differently, so he dressed like a normal interrogator. And when he walked in, the Alter Rebbe stood up for him. He said, "Why'd you stand up for me?" He said, "You're the king." He says, "How do you know I'm the king?" The Alter Rebbe told him that when you walked in, I felt the Midas Hamalchus, Sviras Hamalchus walking with you. So it's something that's naturally connected to a person who's a real king. And when it comes kingship, who's the king of all kings revealed in Torah Tshuva, this causes a reciprocation of feeling of awe towards God. Continuing inside. From this, meaning from the revelation of God's kingship in the upper world, is also drawn down this feeling of awe into the souls of the Jewish people, which causes them which causes them to desire to accept the yoke of heaven upon themselves due to the awe of the king. Now the Alter Rebbe says something. One more line, V'tia Yirasal Pneim Kol Hashanah. So this causes them A, to accept the yoke of heaven, and B, that their service of God, they will have an element of fear of God throughout the year, not to sin. So this is all drawn down from Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. That's what draws down the fear of God for the whole year. Because we know that every holiday draws down a certain ammunition that we carry with us in Avodas Hashem for the entire year. And the part that's drawn down through Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is the idea of Malchus, all of Hashem's Malchus, which is Kabbalah so Malchus Shemayim and Yiras Hashem. Alter Rebbe now says something very interesting. Ki Yiras Hashem v'Ahavosai Eina Asu v'Natur b'Leiv ha'Adam Mekoyach Atzmoi Ki Mekoyach ha'Ora Hanimshach Alov Malamayim. As fear of God and love of God is not something that's planted in a man's heart on its own, meaning due to man's own initiative. It's not something the man can create and turn on a button for. Rather, it comes as a result of the ray that's drawn upon him from above, during its time of revelation. So during the time of revelation, which is Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Yira, and then Sukkot Ava, that's what in essence pumps the neshama with the ability to then arouse love and fear throughout the whole year. And that's why we're saying that fear of God is received from this revelation of God's Malchus, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Because without that revelation, you're thus not capable, you're not able to turn on the switch on itself. So there's a few ways of explaining this. Number one, kipshuta. Love is an emotion and fear is an emotion. And you have all types of different people who have difficulty arousing these emotions in anything in life. You have some people who are fearless, which sometimes is very bad because fear is a part of a human trait which allows them to stay away from dangerous things. A child who has never been burnt and is very young is not scared of fire because he doesn't know what it is. And it will take him that first time to be burnt in order to understand it's something to fear. So not having fear of something that you should be fearful of because it's dangerous for you is something not good. But the point is that fear is not something of a switch that you can turn on. It's something that either comes with life experience, it comes with development, with maturity. And the same thing it is with fear of God. Even if we try our hardest to arouse a fear of God, if that emotion has not naturally placed into the soul, it won't be able to be aroused. So when is that emotion planted in? Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. When is the emotion of love planted in? On Sukkot. And there's also a further element here that's explained. And that is as follows. A person only loves and fears something that he's able to grasp, that is near him. And no one right now has a passionate dream of being in the Bahamas. Well, the Bahamas just got hit by a hurricane, so never mind. I'll say somewhere else. Hawaii. right? No one here is dreaming about it, but believe me that if you already had a ticket and an itinerary flying tomorrow morning to Hawaii, you would already be in Hawaii in your mind. Why? Because it's something close to you. It's something that's tangible, something that's you're able to get. So the more of a reality something becomes, the more feeling we develop for it. However, when something is just aloof, abstract, it's very difficult to arouse any feeling for it. So Rosh Hashanah and Kippur, that's when Hashem becomes close to us, reveals Himself to us, and it makes Him tangible to the soul to connect with Him. And that's what then leads throughout the whole year, the ability to have love for Him and have fear for Him comes from that tangibility of God. We're continuing inside. And this then is the aspect of the Deidi that God gives us back. So Ani Deidi takes place in the month of Elul. We have to do Sursa de Lasato. We have to do our investment into the relationship. Well, the Deidi only takes place 10 days later, which is, meaning after Elul is over, from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, throughout those 10 days. So now, how do we bring about the V'dei Dili? We explained that the V'dei Dili is God reveals to us His Malchus, which brings to us to have awe of Him, and that God shows us love, which plants love for Him. What do we have to do in Elul to make that happen? Meaning, if He's reciprocating with Malchus and Ahava, with Ava and Yira, then how do we arouse that in Elul? It says we have to do a Sursa Sata. We have to initiate. How do we initiate? What does it mean for us to do? Give tzedakah. What does it mean to do? The Alter Rebbe here says, in order to bring about the V'dei Dili, you have to do an action in Elul that's similar to the V'dei Dili, which is in the month of Elul, a Jew has to try to arouse on his own love and fear. Meaning that even though until God plants it inside of you and makes Himself tangible, so you can have a developed love and fear, you can't really have it on your own. It's not going to be true. It's not going to be a real experience. Nonetheless, you have to try. Even if even a baby who's not yet able to walk, tries to walk, and eventually they learn to walk from those falls. And so too, in the month of Elul, God asks of us, you first try to invest in the love, you first try to invest in the fear. I know it's going to be baby steps, and it's not going to be anything really true, anything really lasting. But nonetheless, you do your part. In Chassidishe Tishrei, I will reciprocate back what you are investing. And that is then the Avodah of Chassidishe. That is the Avodah of the Sursa L'Sata, is the arousing love and fear. A lot of people, people have told me this all the time when we discuss these concepts throughout Chassidus, that all these ideas of arousing love and fear, it's something of history. It's something we learn about history, of how Chassidim used to daven, what Chassidim used to do. But today, we're a generation of, we're like frostbitten. We're like in the deep, we're in the deep Siberian desert where you have nothing. Everything is just dead. And but the truth is that it's if the person is describing the outcome even after the effort, okay. But in most cases, he's describing the outcome before the effort. So what's the chiddush? What's the chiddush of saying, well, in today's generation, no plants grow anymore? Did you ever try seeding it? Did you ever try taking? No, I never learned about it. I don't know how to plant. Oh, of course, that's why you don't have orchards, because you're not planting. If you plant and you follow the instructions, and maybe you'll start seeing something. And afterwards, when you don't see that your fruits are growing as good as the fruits of Amal or of yesteryear, then you can make your statement factually true. But without putting in the effort, how can you make such a statement? But most people have this attitude that, oh, nismatu alavavis, the hearts are so dull that it's not even worth trying, it's not going to work. See the Alter Rebbe tells us, guys, don't look at the results. Just work on the effort of trying to do this, trying to arouse the love, trying to arouse the fear, and God will reciprocate that back in the month of Tishrei. The Alter Rebbe now addresses a question. And the question is that according to what we just explained, which is pretty mainstream, that Elul, you got to start working hard on your Avodas Hashem. That's pretty mainstream. That wasn't yet revolutionary. How does that come to How is that understood in face of the fact that it's brought in Svarim that Hine Noida Shebe'el Uzmanas Gazi Bin Sarachim? It's brought down in the Kisvei Arizal and Mishnah Chassidim and other Svarim that the period of the month of Elul is a time that God reveals His 13 attributes of mercy. So how can you say that the month of Elul is a time of V'Susa L'Sata when we have one of the greatest revelations possible during this specific month? So it A, contradicts the concept of V'Susa L'Sata, and B, it instigates the next question. The next question is, if it's true that during the month of Elul, the 13 attributes of mercy are revealed, then why is the month of Elul weekday? Huh? Whatever. If the 13 attributes of mercy are revealed in the month of Elul, then why is it that it's a weekday and it's not a Yom Tov or Shabbos? Meaning, the reason why Shabbos and Yom Tov are what they are is meaning days that it's usher to do malacha. You're not allowed to do lamatas malachas and Yom Tov only malachas eichel nefesh. You have to rest and focus just on God. The reason for that is because of the godly revelations that occur on these days. Because of these godly revelations, therefore, it's forbidden for a person to contradict them, to taint them, to secularize them by doing mundane activity. And that's why there's an Isser, Malach, Shabbos, and Yom Tov, due to the revelation. So if so, then why is it that Elul, which contains one of the highest revelations, higher than Shabbos and Yom Tov, of the 13 Midas, Harachamim, why is it that during this month we are allowed to do mundane work? And in fact, there's only one day of the year that the Yigdum Sarachim are revealed, so we have an entire month of Yigdum Sarachim versus one day called Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, we see you can't even eat, you can't drink. It's the Shabbos of the Shabbos. Shabbos in the Torah calls. So how do we find such a great have the Yeshefesh Gadol ben Elul? Then in Elul it's not to do malacha, and you're allowed to eat, and you're allowed to drink, despite this revelation, as opposed to on Yom Kippur, and as opposed to Shabbos and Yom Tov, that you have to rest as a result. So this is the question that the Alter Rebbe asks, and this then now initiates the Alter Rebbe's famous mashal of Amelech Basodeh. This mashal of Amelech Basodeh, Baruch Hashem, has spread throughout all different sects of Judaism today. Even simple Yidden that are only traditionally from have heard of the concept of Hamelech Basadeh, the king is in the field in the month of Elul. Not everyone knows that it's even sourced in the Alter Rebbe. They just know it as a fact of Jewish tradition, that Elul is a month where God comes to the field and God is with us. And this was, Baruch Hashem, one of the Alter Rebbe's philosophies that he spread with this mashal. So we're going to read it inside and see exactly what is answered up with it. So the two questions that we asked, again, how is it that in Elul you're allowed to do malacha, unlike Yom Kippur, if there's even the Sarachim, and how is it that we say Elul is the month of the Susa de Lasato, of man initiating first, the time that we have this great revelation? So this can be understood through the following mashal of the king. Shekoidem ba'ila'ir, if a king is making his way to a certain city, before he enters the city, Yoitzen Anshe Ha'ir L'Krasir, the people of the city, the residents, the leaders, all come to greet him, Umekablan Panav Basada, and receive his face in the field before he enters the city. Ve'az, and while they are there greeting him, Rishayin Kol Misha Reitzin Lotzit Hakbal Panav, anyone who wants to greet the king is able to greet him. He accepts everyone equally with a happy countenance, with a smile, with love, and he doesn't make any differentiation between the people. And when he then enters into the city, they go after him. But and afterwards, when he goes back home to the throne, to sit on his throne, the capital, people are only allowed to enter with permission. And even those who enter with permission are only only those who are the top, the highest, most aristocratic of the nation. Only they are able to come in. Okay, seems like a simple mashal. What is the Alter Rebbe here trying to say with the mashal? So he actually doesn't elaborate very much. He leaves it to us to figure out. He writes a one-liner. Period, and the rest of this ice is dealing with another aspect. So too, it's dealing with another aspect. He concludes here, and so too it is in the mashal, in the nimshal, that in the month of Elul we all go out to greet the Pnei Hashem in the field. So let's try to analyze this mashal and come to some of the conclusions ourselves, how it answers everything. There's a big difference between the experience of an individual when you're going into the king's palace and meeting the king when he's sitting in his throne versus that you meet the king on the street. They're both great experiences. They're both what to talk about. They're both something to, today's age, you can say Facebook about, or whatever other technology you want to use. Instagram, or what's the photo thing?
Facebook is old already.
Facebook is old. The photo thing. I forgot what it's called. Okay, whatever it is, right? It's something to show no matter where it is, but the experience on the person, the change and effect on the person is very, very different when it's you just greeting him in the streets where everyone else can do so versus you entering into his chamber. And one of the differences in the effect is that it's not that arousing, meaning that if the king is coming towards your city, then it's something that's only temporary. And being that he's coming without all of his entourage. Well, he is coming with an entourage, but not with his. He doesn't have all of his, majestic things that he has with him in his palace, which is, of course, what creates a lot of the awe of the king when people see all of the servants and the tall buildings and everything, and then they see the person sitting on top of it. All that creates a tremendous impression on the person, as opposed to Stam, a guy who comes with his traveling clothing off of his carriage with a few guards. It's not the same thing. And this not the same thing, it answers the first question. Since the mashal is that God is coming down to us, to our city, not that we're going up to him, therefore it doesn't arouse us consciously to have the ahava and yira. And it's something that we have to do on our own. In other words, that we know that the king is here. We know HaMelech Basada. But the fact that we know HaMelech Basada, that alone does not arouse a conscious emotion of love and fear. That's the job of Tishrei, of Deidili. And since it doesn't arouse a conscious love and fear, it leaves room for us to do our Avodah. In other words, the fact that we have to do Susa de Lasata, we have to do our own initiation of investment, doesn't mean that God's not going to do anything. It's similar to a father who wants to see his child start learning to walk, his 10-month-old baby to start walking. So if the father's never going to enter the room, he's just going to sit in his bed and watch from a monitor, the baby's also not going to walk. The baby's not going to do anything. But if he walks near the baby and he puts something in front of him so he has to walk in order to get it, then that will instigate the child to walk. And it's the same idea over here. God is telling everybody in the month of Elul, I am coming down to the field. You have ability to reach me. You have ability to greet me. that alone is not going to permanently change all of a sudden a person from, it's not an arousal from above that's going to completely change him. But he's able to invest and take the steps upon doing so. It's just giving the capability of doing so. That is the idea of the revelation of Chassidishe Parsha-Shoftim. This also answers the second aspect of the second question we asked. As during the holidays, which said is Asr and Malacha, the reason is because you're entering the king's palace. It's not that God is coming below. We're going above. There's Aliyah Sa'ilamus on Shabbos, on Yom Tov, and Yom Kippur. So we're all going above to a much higher sphere. And in that higher sphere, you got to behave properly. When you enter the palace, you can't come in your regular weekday clothing. You got to wear special clothing. You're trained. I know even today when they have visitations for the queen, there's like a whole process that you have to go through, like a whole, they dress you down on what protocol is, what to follow, what to say, what not to say, etc., etc. Reminds me of a joke. Should I say a joke with the queen? You probably know the joke. Anyone who went to meet the Queen of England, so I don't know if this is true, but they would prepare them, the guards would prepare them already for a few weeks before, and of all the protocol, which included that you needed to greet the Queen with a certain accustomed Latin statement. There was an accustomed Latin statement that everybody would say. I messed up the joke. The joke is anyone who's being knighted by the Queen has to say this old Latin statement to receive the official knighting. So there was a nice Jewish rabbi who, Baruch Hashem, worked hard and achieved the position of knight. He goes to the Queen, and after he was trained and he memorized this Latin statement, just seeing the Queen, when it came his turn, he mamish went blank, forgot everything. And he just blurted out the first thing that came out of his mind, and the Queen looked to the side and said, "Why is this night different than all the other?"
That's funny.
Can I just make sure I know what you said? Yud Gimel Minus Arachim are Hashem being available so that we're not afraid because it's just kind of normal and that allows us to do the avoda of Elohim?
Correct. So that's what gives us the motivation to initiate. Mm-hmm. Like the baby, seeing that the father is there and sticking something out from the get, that gives him. But he has to arouse his own energy to get up and get it. The father is not picking him up. He's just being around. He's just putting the circumstance in front of him. And that's Yud Gimel Sarachim. The God's, most people, especially when we think about our sinful state during the year, think about it. A person accounts, a Jew makes an accounting of the entire year, 12 months of activity. There's going to be some bad things on the list, and naturally the Yitzhar makes us feel very bad about it. The nice Jewish conscience. He makes us invest a lot of melancholiness towards it. So a person can think, I don't have a chance. I don't have I'm gone, so I might as well, as the saying goes, if I'm going to burn, I may as well make it well. It says, just give up. So a person sees that he doesn't really have a chance. So God tells him, during the month of Elul, the check's open for everybody to come. Everybody can come. Everybody's available except all people of all backgrounds. And this gives the person the ability to want them to initiate and change. But it doesn't arouse within him the emotions of love and fear towards God, which only comes later. And this is why it's mutter malacha. Since God is coming down below, He's and we're not going up above. So we don't have to follow all the different protocols that need to be followed in the state of the revelation of godliness, as we're right now not in their area. He's coming down here in a levush, in his traveling clothing. And since that's the case, it doesn't contradict us doing it. The Alter Rebbe now goes into, in the next part of this ice, he goes into explaining what is exactly this revelation of Yud Sarachamim. And he says that in truth, this revelation is within every single person's own soul. Every person's soul contains the revelation of Yud Sarachamim. And so when we say that there's a revelation, it's not something external on the outside. It's something that every Jew contains within him and has to be developed and expressed. So we're continuing. Kihine ksiv. Yor Hashem panav elecha. The verse states, and God shines his face, his countenance onto you. Shu inyan ha'aras yid gimel midas. This represents the revelation of 13 attributes. Shia panim bepanim. That the Yud Gimel Midas, that God's countenance should be revealed to a Jew face to face, meaning that it should be a very close relationship of feeling and love between the two, between God and the Jew and Jew and God. The Hainu Shiyar Gilu Pnimis Utzayni Yisbarach Lemakad Neshamis Yisrael At Shia Iker Pnimis Utzayni Rav Yisbarach Dafka B'Lev Nefesh Onko Delibim Ziris Nefesh Mashasm. Meaning that the effect of this revelation of the Yud Gimel Midas, in a way of Pnimius is, meaning this is what God wants to achieve, is that this revelation, Gimel Midas, will penetrate the inner heart of a Jew to the point that his only will and desire is to attach his heart and his soul to God with Mesiras Nefesh. Meaning that a Jew doesn't have anything else in his life that he thinks about and cares about but God. And that he gives up all of his will for God. The idea of Mesiras Nefesh is that it's above Tam V'das. It doesn't make sense why anybody would give up his life for something that's not tangible. Why would a person give up his life for God? Al Kiddush Hashem. It's not something tangible that you see again and again in return. So what's the purpose of doing such a crazy thing like giving up your life? But nonetheless, a person throws himself completely into the hands of God. And this is the idea that the Eibishter wants that the revelation, Gilui Midas Harachman, within a Jew is meant to eventually create. It's meant to eventually create this status. The pasuk says, Yor Hashem panav. The pasuk says, we're going to read Kel Avai V'Yar, that it's the first word of the pasuk of the Shem Hashem, Hashem Kel Racham L'Chanun. It's the word Kel, which carries all of this revelation of the entire Yud Gimel Midas, and that's what Hashem is entering into the Jew. That this incorporates the infinite light of God itself. What is trying to say like this? That the level that's revealed to us from Yud Gimel Harachamim, because the Yud Gimel Midas is 13, right? So which one is revealed to us? Which is the main one that's focused and centralized in intensity in the revelation? It's the first one, the highest one, Kel. And what does Kel represent? Kel represents a revelation of God's infinite light, which is just like fire. Just like the ray of fire is similar, meaning the light of fire is similar to the fire itself, so to God's infinite light is similar to Him Himself. So what God is trying to invest and is showing us, He's showing us His most inner countenance and most inner part, in order so we reciprocate and give Him back His most inner part.
His.
In order so we reciprocate and give back to Him our most inner part. Continues the Alter Rebbe. We're after the parentheses. Skip the parentheses. This is why the Jewish people are called Yisrael. Yashar Kel. Sar Kel. Lashon Sar. Kel. The reason is as follows. Sar Kel means is that we have within us Kel. We have within us this aspect of Kel, this shining revelation, most inner countenance of God, of Ein Sof. And the Yud means that it's constantly there. That's a smallest pula, means that it's something constant. Alter brings us in Tanya, Perik base. Meaning that a Jew's true governance comes from this level of Kel, who governs with his soul within him. How does it govern his soul within him? Alter explains. The Hainu, Sheyesh b'chol nefesh miYisrael, as every single Jewish soul contains, nitzutz alikus mamish hamachai nafsh alikus. Something very interesting. In Tanya, we learn about that there's two souls: the animal soul, the godly soul. But it doesn't really go into, other than the 10 parts, the Seichel and Midas doesn't go much deeper into its anatomy. We don't know any much more of its essence, what it's made of. And here the Alter Rebbe tells us that every single godly soul of a Jew contains a spark of actual godliness, which then enlivens the rest of the godly soul. Hamachaya nafshe elikis, which enlivens the godly soul, meaning what is pumping the Seichel and Midas, the Chabad and Chagas of the godly soul with its experience and desires, that comes from this spark of godliness that's in it. And this is what draws a person naturally to desire the light of God and to give up his life for him. And this comes much higher than the Chachma and Das that's in the soul of a person. As a person who's working with his intellect will never intellectually make a decision to give up his life and everything of his for God, because what's in it for him? What would he get back? So this idea of Mesiras Nefesh comes from the Nitzutz Alikus, that Mechaya the Nefesh Alikus, comes from this spark of God that enlivens the soul. And this we're going to see is the aspect of Kel. The aspect of Kel that God shines into us is this Nitzutz, is this spark. And this is also the idea that we're called children of God. As a child is like an extension, like a leg of his father, meaning that he's able to give himself up for his father without any comprehension. Like a foot, it's nullified to the head, and does not have any of his own independent will. This is what it means when it says nullify your will in front of God's will, as in order for God's will to be internally invested within a person, he has to make himself a receptacle for that, to give up any other will that he contains. So to summarize this point over here, this was a bit complex, this ending part of this ice. After the Alter Rebbe brought the mashal of a melech basada and explained how God gives us this opportunity to come greet him in this month, and he accepts everybody, even with their levushei chil. You don't have to make it like Shabbos. And this is all in order to tell everyone that you are able and should do a susa b'lasata. Now, Rebbe then explains much deeper of how it works, that Hashem shines into a Jew. The Revelation is Hashem shines into a Jew, the aspect of Kel Yud Gimel Midas, which is the Nitzot Tzadiki, which is the godly spark of his soul, and then that feeds his soul with a pull towards godliness, towards being close to God and serving God, etc. And what a Jew has to do is he has to try to develop that through nullifying his other wills, and then that allows Yud Gimel Midas to be around. So in other words, that we don't have access to the Yud Gimel Midas naturally in Elo unless we work on it. Hashem tells us Yud Gimel Midas are here. You have it in you. It's like a treasure chest, but you have to find the key. And you have to find the key in order to release it and let it out and experience it. And that can only be experienced if the Jew does his work. And that's the connection between the mashal and the aspect of the Yud Gimel Midas. That, as what it sounds like in the beginning, is that there's an automatic revelation of Yud Gimel Midas, and in addition, you have to do your work. It's just that the Yud Gimel Midas don't arouse you. We're saying no. In order, the Yud Gimel Midas are around potentially in the month of April for anyone to come and get access to it. However, if you don't go forward to outside and meet the king, then you didn't take advantage of the Yud Gimel Midas. So this is the idea over here that I'll be explaining in the end. Ice bays. In ice bays, we're running out of time. We're just gonna, I'll go through it's more simple also. We'll go through some of it quickly. The Alter Rebbe here begins discussing what do you do with a person who tries, mamish tries. He learned about this whole first ice. He knows that the Yud Gimel Midas, he knows that the Shem Kel, the Nitzos Aliki, Isusa Delasata, etc., etc. But nothing's moving. He doesn't feel bad about anything. He doesn't feel bad about his state in Avedus Hashem. He doesn't feel bad about being distant from God. and he's not able to reveal within himself any spiritual sensitivity. What does he do? Numbness, spiritual numbness. So this is his base. Just like physically in the world you have a city which is developed, popularized, and you have a field in a desert, so too you have within a person himself. You have some people that have very developed emotions, some people who have like a field where people don't live in the field, they just grow stuff there. So the emotions are underdeveloped, then you have a midbar which is completely empty. Nothing grows, dull. Midbar hi eretz leizerua. A midbar, a desert, is a place where nothing has been planted. What does this refer to spiritually? This refers to all of the actions, speech, and thoughts that are not for God, that are not towards God. It goes without saying that if a person has blemish, meaning has sinned in thought, speech, or action, but even if he hasn't literally done an aveira, transgressed the law and Shulchanaruchharav in the Torah, but he's very much involved in taivas heter, in indulging in permitted things. And things that he doesn't need for service of God, he indulges in it because it feels good, it's pleasurable. And things that are not for the service of God, the Zohar states that it is not the way of a king to dwell within words of the fools, meaning that the king doesn't hang out with people who are below his standards, in simple terms. So even if it's something that doesn't transgress the king's will, still, if you want the king to be buddy-buddy, you got to try to live up to the standards that he's used to. This is what Alter is saying, that a person who has mashavas, tiburim, and maisim, even if it's not actual theirs, but certainly if it is, so this, so to say, pushes away that shem kel from being revealed. That pushes away from the shechina from being revealed within the person. It's there, but it's dark. This is the meaning of what the verse states in, I believe it's in Yirmiyahu, that man does not dwell there. This is referring to Pirish Adam Mashkas. This is referring to the man on the supernal chair, meaning God. That he's saying that God does not dwell, he's not able to come down within the person and dwell within the person that has this. As the pasuk says, make for me a dwelling place, meaning first we have to make the place a receptacle for God. And then God comes and dwells. So a person who's in a state of a midbar, he's not able to experience this shem kel. So before we explained every Jew has this siliki, and he's able to then take advantage of it and use it to be completely nullified. We spoke about a very high level of Vedas Hashem. Here the author is explaining why the person doesn't experience it, and that's because of the level of midbar. So the question is, now what do we do? If we are the level of midbar, of a desert, and therefore we don't experience the nitzat siliki of the nefesh elikis, we don't experience the shem kel yigin nisarachamim, what advice is there for us to deal with this? So he says, the advice given for this is as follows. It says that you have to search for God. A lot of people, we wait for God to show us a sign, and then we say, God, show me a sign, and then I'll be all yours. Not only with the non-religious, that for sure most people who are about shuvas, as far as I know, I never statistically measured this, but almost all the stories I know about shuvas, there was something inspirational that got the person moving. Something what you can call a godly light, a godly revelation, a susa that God shone onto the person, and that sparked them up, and they got them initiated and interested, and they began making their tshuva. So we're used to daily God initiating towards us, and then we come and do on our own. It says here the Alter Rebbe, so the person here that's in the midbar is saying, listen, I'm in the midbar, I have no feelings of spiritual life or godliness. God created this situation. Let him come take me up. Let him come show some revelation. Let him show his face. And when I see him, then I will come back. There's a story with Chassid of the Alter Rebbe that he lived in a city. He was originally, as most people that in that generation, was not a Chassid originally, and he wasn't born a Chassid. And he, with time, became close to the Chassidim, and eventually became a Chassid of the Alter Rebbe. He was a student of, I believe, it was Zalman Zesmer. In any event, so one time, there was some Polish Chassidim that were in the town, and these Chassidim were basically saying, why don't you come to us? Your Rebbe talks a lot about Torah. He's very intellectual, but he can't do any miracles. He doesn't have God's hand. He's not, buddy with God to do miracles. He's like a Rosh Hashiva. That's what they said of the Alter Rebbe. They wanted to get him to leave Chabad and join the Polish Chassidic group, and he was very sad about this. He was very down about this. When a shliach was sent to do the collection of the monies for Shracha Keilu Chabad of Eretz Yisrael, so the shliach, when he came to the Alter Rebbe told him, I want you to send a message to this Avrech, and I want you to tell him that this is to you a sign, and to them is a wonder. That was Russian. The shliach didn't understand what was going on. The Alter gave a message. He went and when he came back to the town, he said that the Alter, and he hadn't spoken to anyone about this. It was feelings in his own mind. He didn't speak a word about this to anybody, what was going on in his head. And when the person told him, the Alter told me to tell you this should be for you a sign and for them a wonder, he understood right away that the Alter saw the Ruach HaKodesh, that they were saying your Rebbe can't do any miracles, he doesn't have connection, or that type of connection with God. He says, so this was for you a sign that you're in the right track, and for them a wonder that this is the one that they were asking for. The person then said, the Alter then told me to tell you that there's no greater wonder than to revive the dead and dull soul of the person. That's the true Machayach, Tchias HaMesim. The point is that those are cases where we receive a Isurusa delay, we receive a revelation from above, and then we say, okay, God, you showed me your hand, I'll follow. However, says the Alter Rebbe, no, the Eitza Ye'utza Lezehi ubikashtem mishamas Hashem alekecha. A Jew has to place effort to find God. He has to place effort and search to find the revelation of godliness, to find where God is consciously hiding, so we can connect with Him. And not just to wait back. In other words, the fact that we sit back and we complain that in Gullus we don't feel any godliness and we don't see anything, often we don't put the proper search. We don't have the proper search team that are searching to try to experience it. But we have a tafkid of bikashta misham, to go to search for it. Pirish, kine ksiv, vayar likim esar kitayv. It says that God saw that the light was good, and Chazal state kitayv lignais. He saw that it was good for what? To hide. Shebechinas ar, shebechinas aras pnimius. As every single Jew contains the divine light within his inner soul, but it's very much concealed betivei in his nature. A Jew has to dig deep down and reveal the treasure chest of fear of heaven. So that is the first. That is the first eight of the Alter Rebbe. Now, by some person, it's not just concealed, it's not just very deep, but it's also lost, and it's a way of exile. So this it says that you have to search. And the whole idea of a search is after something that's lost. Something that's lost by him. So what are we searching for? We're all on a search mission to find the long lost spark of the godly soul within our own soul. In other words, finding God is not somewhere outside. It's not some bombastic, crazy, situation. It's not a crazy Eshkacha Prata story. It's good, but it's not. That's not the answer to finding God. Some crazy story that happened with you, and that's it. I saw the light and came back. God sends that to people as a stepping stool. So that's why most people, you see that a lot of people, they have this inspiration in the beginning. There's a lot of different revelations, and afterwards they don't see it anymore. They lose it. And the question is why? The answer is because that was only a little spark to get the engine running. Once it's running, then the Jew has the tafkid to do his own digging, to do his own searching. And he's searching for a lost object. He's searching for that long lost spark of the godly soul. And this is the meaning of saying that he's searching. What is he searching for? For that aspect of the spark of God that's in relation to every single Jew within that specific Jew. Now the pasuk says not just to search for it, but search for it there. It's just like you're not going to go look for something you lost in Jerusalem in Tel Aviv. It's not the city. So too, it doesn't help to go searching to find God in a place that you didn't lose God. You have to first look for Him in the place that you lost it, which is where? In the sins. The sins is what is covering over and concealing God. Person has to do a true cheshbon nefesh of all of his thoughts, speech, and action from the day he was born until today, which were not good, and then he's kasem misham and do tshuva on that. He has to search from there, from within where it was lost. Ki lashon zeh hu davar sheyochel mamish laharis alo betzvah shema alo kiyuza. V'yesh leima kach rak al kodesh baruch mazekul v'amdik m'al v'sprida v'makom mishkan haklipos nikasham klema almek moedamat. He says that when it says bikashta misham, sham is a lashon of klipa. There, elsewhere is klipa, while zeh, this, which is in front of you, refers to God. Zeh shadosh razal pasuk kor shoin pari kol hiver moed etzon hader shalom moed v'simcha hiver v'simcha shel haylos. Okay, we're going to skip to Acha Adam, and it's in the middle of the line. It's, where is it? 1, 2, 3, 4 here. If you look over here, where it's highlighted. Look where it's highlighted. It's right after the small brackets, the parentheses. Okay, so a person is told, I don't feel anything. What do? You fast do tshuva. Now, what do you do if the person went through this? It says, I followed your instructions. The cake still tastes horrible. I did everything you said. Nothing's working. My kale is still lost. My nitot tzaliki is still lost, nowhere to be found. I went through, I searched everywhere. A person that goes through and searches and still does not have the need of mercy aroused. And he doesn't have any bitterness at all of the situation. Even though he thinks about it. How his godly soul, how the spark of the godly soul, which is God, has went to exile, we say not inside of his soul. So yes, and this is what he should tell himself. He should tell himself the following mashal. Earlier, I skipped it before, but earlier the Alter Rebbe said that when a person, he said before, right, that you have to be mefashrish, you have to search for it there, right? The chipasta misham. Misham is there in the klipas, in the others. How do you search in the others? When you do a cheshbon nefesh and you then have that tremendous feeling of regret and remorse of the distance, not necessarily of the sin, but the distance that was created from God due to it, and you have then aroused rachmanis of what was caused to the godly soul due to it, that is paidas avim, that then reveals the shame kel. Having mercy is one of the greatest ingredients of an emotion that helps then to free, so to say, the compassion and love that you want to have, the love that you want to feel. So having mercy for the godly soul is to reveal the love that it contains. So he's saying that if a person thinks about this and it doesn't work, it's still following cost, then what should he do? So he should do the following. He shouldn't think of the following much. Naturally, a person, even when his nail hurts him, of his foot, which is the lowest part of his body, because he hit a stone, he feels this pain in his mind, meaning in his nerve system, and he feels and he's pained by it. But a person can only feel pain if the limb is still connected to him, still attached to him, before it's cut off. If you, let's say, cut off a nail and you then stab the nail, does anything happen? You don't feel a thing. Okay, the mind doesn't feel at all the pain. The pnei has been completely separated and cut off from its source. So too the Jewish people are attached to Hashem. And therefore we need to naturally feel the pain that is caused by the by the blemish that's caused by sin, through sending the godly soul and the spark of godliness into exile. Even though a person sinned, he's still a Jew, so he still contains it. It doesn't leave him, it's just an exile. So the point is that a person who has sinned, then he should naturally feel the pain of that, just like a person naturally, because he's connected to God, just like a person naturally feels the pain when he stubs his toe. Now, a person who doesn't feel the pain, this is because he's become so blemished to the point that it's like the nail separated from the hand, to the point that he's been separated from his source, chas v'shalom. So in other words, when a person thinks about this, why is it that when I contemplate, I do the work to contemplate the sins, and I'm not moved by it, I can't arouse mercy for my soul, and I can't reveal and redeem the love of my soul? This is because the sins have impacted so deep that it's disconnected the person from above. And when a person realizes he's been disconnected from above, when a Jew realizes he's been disconnected from God, he arouses even greater mercy. And the fact that he can't, as Zalta says, have mercy, and the fact you can't have mercy. Arouse compassion to the point that this is how bad things have become that you can't even arouse compassion. And the Yeshayim Magz Chal says, and we're going to skip the parentheses there. We're in the bottom of the page. Now, what happens if even this doesn't work? Even this doesn't work. He tells himself, you've been cut off. He's still not moved. He still can't arouse any feeling. Then gives a third eitzah, the Neksiv Rebbe Shanim. It says in the pasuk, that's the next line actually, that a Rebbe Shashanim, it says we're going to give a midos at Rebbe Shashanim, which is referring to the leaves of a rose. Mashishana, just like a red rose, is hapich megoven some megoven chal, where it turns from red to white when you put it by the fire. So it says if your sins are red, then I will whiten it like snow. As sin is called red, so to all of the mundane activities that are not related to God, they're called red. They come from the Yetzirah. They will be turned into white. So, and this is turned through fire. Now, what's the fire that can help turn these sins which are red to white? So there's a fire from above, there's a fire from below. Not every man merits to receive the fire from above. But the fire from below is what? Sigufim v'taniyis. Bekitzer, the ma'id chelp v'damish v'situ l'klipas neigvas yerasham panim b'chol soshpan. Says something like this. If a person sees that he's completely emotionless, he's not able to arouse any sensitivity, it's a sign that things are pretty bad. He needs what's called a tipul shorish. He needs to do a root canal. Meaning that the intellect is no matter how much the intellect and the mind imagine on things, it's not going to arouse emotion. So that means that there's a lot. That means that the pipes are clogged. The pipes are clogged. The pipes are clogged, and you got to unclog them. How do you unclog them? The Alter Rebbe says that's through diminishing in indulgence in physical matters. When a person here, he says literally, "Sigufim v'taniyas." Today we don't fast. Today it's any matter of iskafia, of withholding oneself, of breaking one's will for anything. When a person is used to just indulging in every will of his that he wants, we don't realize that even if it's not against halacha, what he's doing, because everything is done according to, he's eating kosher food, all of his indulgences are kosher. Just the idea that whenever you want something, you give in, that already creates a blockage of being able to relate to spiritual things to God. As what does it mean you're always giving into your desires? Meaning your whole life is you. It's about you. So how can it be about God suddenly? And in order to break that, a person has to do the opposite and withhold himself and do a skafia and hold himself back. That starts to slowly unclog the pipes. When the pipes are unclogged, he's then able to do the other eitzes that we said, to arouse feelings of mercy for his godly soul, for the nitzvah leki, which redeems the shem kel, and allows us to experience the beginning of the sarachamim in Chodesh Elul, that will then grant us eksivach simotayva in Chodesh Tishrei. That's definitely what we're doing for today. No, we only have a little bit left. We just have Gimel.
What?